Staying with issues around water, as the country's urge to save water, as we've just heard there, constantly, one innovator is taking steps to help solve the water and sanitation crisis. Murendeni Mafumo has created a system that purifies at least 1,000 litres of water a day. The system uses an activated carbon filter made from macadamia and nutshells. His company, Kusini Water, seeks to assist in providing clean water for the poor. Before we chat to him, let's take a look at him in the field.
This is a community center for people to continuously get water. So this is where our process starts. So we get water from any source, mostly groundwater, rainwater, and then we store it in one 5,000 to about 2,500 litre tank, and that's just for raw water storage. Guys are busy just fixing up some of them. And then the process then comes into, so the storage tank supplies the water to the filtration system. So this is really the first stage of the filtration system. I'm going to switch it off for now. The first stage involves macadamia nutshells, integrated carbon, and then it also involves sediment. So it removes solid material, any solid material that could be in the water, dissolved solids, as well as any solids that could be in the water. And the second stage is the membrane filtration stage.
Now let's speak to the man himself, the entrepreneur behind Kusini Water, the founder, Murendeni Mafumo, joins us via Skype from Limpopo. Murendeni, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We just watched a little video of you in action, and it seems to be your happy place. This is not just an invention for an invention's sake. Behind it, it seems to be a passion to really make a life-changing difference in communities' lives where they need it most.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, and good morning. It's actually very good to hear from Mr. Ratao as well. You know, I used to work in one of the places where he used to work previously as well. So thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about those who watched that video now and they saw all the gizmos that you've got and gadgets that you've got working in your system. Explain to us in layman's terms how your system works.
Yeah. So basically how the system works is that we take dirty water from any source. So generally speaking, at the moment, one of the biggest supplies of water in South Africa as well as in the rest of the African continent is rainwater. And the biggest challenge is that if there's any climate change, shortage of rain, and especially as we've seen over the last couple of years that less and less rain is falling down. So we take sources from other sources. We take seawater, we take contaminated groundwater, and from that source that we take, we pump it up into a treatment system. We use a solar pump to take it up into the filtration system. The filtration system itself is two stages. So the first stage is a removal of the stuff that makes the water smell bad. So the stuff that makes it look and smell bad gets removed with the macadamia nutshell activated carbon. The second stage after that is basically like a big sieve. What it does is basically when the water comes in, it just removes it, like how a sieve would work. How I also explain it is just basically works exactly the same way as a kidney works in a human body. It takes one material which is contaminated or one material which is toxic. In this case, it's dirty water, which has high viruses, high E. coli, high bacteria, and it basically sifts it out. And at the end of that process, on the outside of that process, we have clean drinking water, which we certify at about 99.999% safe to drink.
Now, this seems to be something that can really make a difference in communities' lives. When you've gone into a specific community to come with this solution, what's the reaction been from the locals?
Yeah, so I think for us, and that's definitely one of my favorite, my best moments after we've installed this system. Because what we do is that we work with either local government or local companies to look for communities that are most affected by lack of access to safe drinking water. So, for example, the video that you've just seen right now is from a small community in Inanda. It's a rural, very remote community that they have to go collect water down the stream. So oftentimes that burden lies with women and young children that have to go all the way down to the stream and walk back up with clean drinking water, normally about 20 liters on a wheelbarrow, or sometimes they have to carry it. What we do then is that we go and find the nearest water source in the nearest, which is most central to the location. So for us, I think it's the biggest difference that we can make. So communities, oftentimes, we always met with a lot of, because of the fact that we put technology in these communities, at first it's surprise, and at first it's like, people want to see what's happening, and then once the water starts flowing, it's oftentimes it's just excitement from the community. So I think for us, it's the most fulfilling moment when the water starts flowing in that community.
Now, you're originally from Limpopo. You're in Limpopo right now. Where did your relationship with water start, that it's come to this point where it's your life's work?
So I was born in Limpopo. I've always wanted to be a scientist for as long as I can remember. So I studied science. My background is in chemistry. So I studied at Cape Technikon. I actually used to work for municipalities. So I worked for City of Cape Town Water and Sanitation Department, as well as Johannesburg Water. That's when I realized, especially when I was working for two of the biggest municipalities in Africa, Johannesburg and Cape Town, in provision of access to safe drinking water, you start to realize just how big the gaps are within communities that have and the communities that do not have. So when we were working in some of those communities, that's when I realized that the government needs a lot of help, and because of the fact that municipalities have to balance, provision of water to communities that already have water, and the increase of water to communities that do not have water, it's very, very difficult for municipalities to balance the two. They need a lot of private sector assistance, and that's when I thought, there is innovation that we can build. So the biggest part about what we're doing is we're building small community-driven innovation to increase access to communities that have never had access before.
Now, what's next for you and Kusini Water? How are you making it sustainable? And I suppose the big question from us is, where we're seeing stories. Just last weekend, a colleague did a report on a community in the Eastern Cape that had no access to fresh water for weeks because the municipality has been unable or unwilling, some might say, to fix their problem with urgency. How much of a relationship are you working with government? Because it sounds like this kind of project should be rolled out at a massive level.
So it's quite difficult, obviously, because national government, local government. So oftentimes we try and work by all means with very local government. So at the moment, I'm in Limpopo because I'm working with the Matsila Community Development Trust. This is a trust that was developed by the chief for the community. So in that community, we're going to be rolling out about 15 treatment systems, working with the chief himself, as well as some of the local government and some of the local businesses that operate in that space. How we make it sustainable is exactly that way. 2 out of 3 of these type of projects, these are private sector-led projects, fail within the first three or 4 years. And the reason for that is because they lack local ownership. So what we try and do with all of our projects is that we work with the very local community itself to own the treatment systems themselves. So we put up the treatment system working with the tribal authority, in some cases working with local government. In our case here in Limpopo, we're working with the Matsila Community Development Trust. They ensure that the system continues to run, and they ensure that they put people behind it from the community. They hire people behind it from the community to operate it and to ensure that it continues to run. We're doing exactly the same thing in the Eastern Cape. And actually, you bring Eastern Cape, it's exactly the same thing that we're doing in the community of Kobo, in Kantol, where we're going to be going there with a private NGO to do exactly the same thing and put up a system in a community that has never had water before.
Well, we can only wish you everything of the best. You and your team are doing some life-changing work there at Kusini Water. Thank you so much. The founder that we've just been chatting to there of Kusini Water, Murendeni Mafumo, live to us from Limpopo. And interestingly enough, his story is part of a new podcast series called #ForWater4Life, produced by the folks at Jojo Tanks. And his episode dealing with his story, if you want to find out more, is titled Natural Born Innovator.